God creator bless you and keep you. Amen.
Yeah, I love that video. Yes, it is sometimes really hard to do this work. Many of us who care for creation know that creation is troubled right now. And it can be hard to know what to do in the face of that. But let's go to our teachings. Let's start with our biblical teachings. I'll do 2 slides of this. What the scripture says about how we are to care for creation, and then I'll talk a little bit about our denomination, how the ELCA is interpreting that and guiding us towards being stewards or servants of creation. So first, you heard it in that video, earth is good. This is one of the first things that God says about the earth. God loves creation and wants us to participate in it. Now, sometimes people interpret God saying we have dominion over the earth, or that we should subdue the earth, as a justification for all sorts of terrible things, the colonizing of our land, the overuse, the exploitation of our land and the people in it. But we know also that God uses the Hebrew word shamar, which is translated as to till the earth or to keep the earth. And when we think about that in line with the Jesus model of servanthood, or call to servanthood, we can see that we're not middle management for earth, but we're a part of it. We're a part of creation, and we must care for earth just as God cares for us. And we have many different models of that, and for me personally, it's helpful to think about the servant king model that Jesus demonstrated for us. Lastly, we are called to justice. Not just for the nature part of creation, but for the human part of creation. And every time that we misuse the land, we abuse nature, that is not just an injustice for the earth, it is also almost every time impacting somebody here on earth too. Our oppression of creation almost always creates injustice for our neighbor, which of course, every book of the Bible, we can find something to say about injustice. And then we also, I don't know, this is a sort of open secret, is that our denomination actually has 2 interpretations talking about how we should care for creation. The first one was in 1993. We have a Caring for Creation social statement that the ELCA released. And then 30 years later, last year, they released a new Caring for Earth's Climate, a climate care social statement to address not just overall environmental problems, but specifically addressing the climate crisis. The most recent one in 2023, the thesis is this, that climate change presents humanity with a kairos moment. This is a Greek word, I believe, that is talking about a critical moment. It is a word for time that is not chronos, overall chronological time, but a critical moment. It's the same word for when God is leading us into decisive action when we accept Jesus. That climate change also presents us with a decisive moment for action. And that we are supposed to go into this with hope, not despair. This is my favorite line in the whole thing. I keep this on repeat in my head. Captured by hope, we proclaim that God has made peace with all things through the blood of the cross, and that the Spirit of God, the giver of life, renews the face of the earth. Captured by hope. That is like, I want it tattooed on me. Captured by hope. So grounding ourselves in that we have a duty to care for our neighbors, human, non-human, earth. I wanted to give you a couple of examples of congregations out there who are taking up this call, some Lutherans out there who are heeding this call. I had such a hard time picking 4, but I knew I only had limited time with you, so I just picked a few. I'm going to start with somebody nearby. Good Shepherd Church in Olympia, who just had their Eco Fair. This is something that that they can engage with the community. They had an electric vehicle car show, and this also has funded their ability to get solar panels on their church, that they're taking less from the earth in terms of energy. They're also getting artists involved, so it's a really beautiful example of community coming together to show off how their church lives in cohesion with creation. The next one I wanted to talk about was Amazing Grace Church in Baltimore. Amazing Grace Church in the 90s was living in what was considered one of the most dangerous areas in America. Their city was really impacted by lack of resources, with gun violence, with addiction, and all of the trauma that comes with that, poverty, grief, all of it. Their church decided that they wanted to create a green space to start healing some of those wounds. So as part of their church, you can see a little bit of there. They just rehabbed a little patch of grass, and it started as that. Then they added a garden, and they added a prayer labyrinth. Then they started producing food for their community. And as this sort of green space grew, it also grew people's imagination for what could be. They were able to team up with the local Parks Association, and they actually started purchasing more land. And they are now, they're called the Charm City Land Trust. They now buy pieces of property to prevent gentrification in their area of town, which is residents are regularly getting displaced because they can't afford it. So they're providing food, healing, caring for the people, and the systemic sort of injustices that are there too. Talking with them, I mean, you should just type it into Google, Amazing Grace Baltimore. It'll make your day. I also want to talk about one of the amazing Lutherans who felt a call as a native of the Chippewa band in Minnesota. She's actually 15 years old, and she is on the Lutherans Restoring Creation board because she is that amazing. She is doing science experiments on how her native pharmaceutical and medicinal properties of this plant, how they might be used with Western science to sort of model an ethnopharmaceutical approach. She feels very guided by her faith, both in reaching out to her community and also with the sort of sciencey healing part of the work. I think she's so cool. And the last one I wanted to talk about was Good Shepherd in Decorah, Iowa. When you think about, some of us mentioned tree hugging. Tree hugging, like the typical eco-green, that's these guys. They have decided that their way to be stewards for creation is to reduce their energy as much as they possibly can. They are actually one of the few churches who is completely carbon neutral. They have a beautiful campus. It's hard to see it up on the screen, but they have a bunch of solar. They have a new pergola that they put in, an outdoor that shades, so they can have outdoor worship, and that is also generating energy for them. And they also were able to do geothermal throughout their building. So they got their old building that was made in the 50s, who was working, running off of gas and oil, all the way to carbon neutral. And these are just 4 examples. I told you I had a really hard time picking just 4, because my whole job is that I am reaching out to these people, I'm hearing their stories, I'm sharing their stories, and I'm supporting them wherever I can. So these are 4 examples of churches that I've talked with on the phone or over email, but I had to pick from, I don't know if you can see in the corner, 420 projects that we support. We support in many ways. So the first one is that we are helping new churches get off the ground. Yeah, in my head I'm running through that. Oh, should I tell you about that church in Bozeman that got started this year? Or the one down in California? there's a lot of churches who are starting ministries out of caring for creation. And we have a kit that we support them with. We have personal, I'm on the phone with them, of course, getting them started as well. A big part of our work is that we're facilitating church-wide the ELCA's resolution to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I don't know if you know this, but our denomination has signed on with the IPCC's recommendation to reduce across the denomination greenhouse gases by 50% by 2030, which is a big deal. Now, there is only one person who is hired by the ELCA who has the word environment in their job title. There's one person. I work very closely with her. And the rest of it is up to Lutherans Restoring Creation, our network, and a conjoined effort by all levels of the church to sort of meet this goal. Yeah?
I don't think our property committee is on board or informed about the 50% reduction mandate. I don't know. Would anybody here know? We couldn't hear you.
Kurt's very conscious of saving energy wherever he can.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he makes sure things turn off automatically. You're drinking your coffee out of organic recycled
I
cups.
used to have a green tea.
Yeah, so
But yeah,
I was sitting here wishing
wondering how the
he'd
word
come.
is getting out. You know, just
Yeah, and that's what I find is not, a lot of people don't know that that is, you know, a resolution passed at every level of the church. And it's interesting because there's a little bit of lack of clarity of where that effort is coming from, whether it's coming from the top down or whether it's guided from churches from the bottom up. So it's a big topic of conversation. Let's talk about it more after this presentation. We also support connecting churches at every level, like I said, the multiple levels of church to the synodical effort. We get people connected down, I'm in the South Sound, so down where we are in Tacoma. A new ministry just arose called Design for Peace, and they hired somebody for climate resiliency who we've been helping getting connected to all the other people who can support her. We have educational materials. I hope I'll get to share a couple of those with you. We have study guides. We have great theological resources. We have worship resources for creating, well, we're in the season of creation, as some people call it, right now, which is a add-on liturgical season. And we support all the churches who do that. And we also are connected with, you remember I said the one person with environment in her name, who works in DC, who is helping legislators, Congress people, to know that Christians care about creation, and our government should too. So that's all the different sort of avenues that we're going in. But there's also, at the congregational level, what can congregations do? So I'll just talk a little bit. Oh, I'm running a little low on time, but I'll go through it quickly. First of all, many of the congregations that LRC is in contact with sign a covenant. The covenant is really beautiful poetic language. I'll get to that in a second. Some of them start creation care ministries. Some of them make an action plan for their either synod or congregation, and many congregations financials. The covenant for creation is a way that church councils get on board to start talking about this in the congregation. Hearing from all of you, I can tell that there is a deep love of creation that many of you feel connected to. And something like the covenant affirms that you're committed to God's creation in glory and beauty, that we respect life as sacred, and that we accept a vocation as earth keepers. Many congregations, I heard you say green team? You had a green team here at one point? Yes, that's beautiful. I'd love to hear more about that. Many churches have a creation care ministry or a green team that can sustain a church past one push. As I said earlier, that's part of LRC's duty, is to support these emerging ministries and also long-standing ones who are struggling. And we have a kit that organizes them. Many churches create an action plan, and we actually have a resource that supports them, and it's called Action Speak Loudly, which considers the 5 areas of church life. So worship, what we're doing on Sunday, Christian education, supporting our Christians of all ages and learning more. Of course, the facilities and building itself. Beautiful, you have a very green canvas here. Personal discipleship, what we do outside of church on our own as Christians. And then, of course, community and public advocacy, how we engage outside of these walls. These are our numbers right now. We have a counter live for those who submit an action plan in those 5 categories. Lastly, churches financially support us. I mentioned at the beginning that my last day is supposed to be Wednesday. We found out that with one person working 40 hours a week, you can do a lot. So you can connect with a lot of people, and a lot of change can happen really quickly. So the good news is that I am staying on. So yay! And that means that now my position is almost entirely crowdfunded. We're very grassroots, so it's the financial support literally goes to helping us have a person in our ministry who can be doing this work. So I've talked a little about what we do, why we do it, and what congregations can do. So I'll pause here for any comments and questions.
Show the donation.
Sorry?
Can you show the donation?
Yes, I can. Those 4 things are all up here. I don't know if you feel comfortable with the QR code. You can also type it in. The bit.ly code's at the bottom, but I will say that they are tax sensitive. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if you had been in contact with Augustana Lutheran in Portland, because for some time now, last year I think they finished it, their entire church has solar panels for everything in all their buildings.
Beautiful. I want to say yes, but I'll have to check our map.
Augustana Lutheran in Northeast Portland.
Thank you for that. That's great. Yeah.
I just want to give an example. I heard this on NPR probably a year and a half ago now, but they were looking at alternatives, ways that Christians gather, and they gave an example of, and I don't know if there was any denomination associated with it, but what ended up happening is they started in a local green garden where the community comes together to plant, et cetera, and harvest and share and direct the produce. But there was a huge tree there, and kind of with the model of Jesus talking to the disciples, you know, a pastor was there, and so they had a period of work, a period of dinner, a period of worship under this whole outdoor sanctuary kind of thing. And the church was growing because it met needs for some people in terms of what their idea of is how they wanted to worship and how they saw themselves as servants and stewards. It was an interesting approach.
The Season of Creation organization calls that the Cathedral of Creation, as having a worship outside. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Gabrielle, if you send me that information, we'll get it into the next church newsletter.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Which we put online. That's what I was
That's great. Yeah.
We spent a lot of money, I don't know if we spent yet, for a hot water, instant hot water thing versus a gas tank.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's good. Anything that helps you save energy, helps lighten the load, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I've been loving to hear the interspersed ways you were sharing too about the ways that this church cares for creation and tries to, yeah.
I assume some of the other denominations, if not all of them, are doing similar work.
Yes.
Do you ever interact with each other, or are you still putting this together before you interact?
Absolutely, we do. We are part of, well, several ecumenical partnerships, but one of our most fruitful ones is called One Home, One Future, which is connecting, I know there's the Presbyterians who do earth care, the Green Chalice is the United Church of Christ, I like the ones, but the Episcopals do this. Yeah, all our Common Cup partners are engaged in this work as well, absolutely, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Why do you think the environment isn't part of the discussion on the presidency?
Oh boy. All right.
Repeat the question, please.
Oh, why do I think that environmental concerns, caring for creation, is a part of the discussion around the presidency? Let's see. Okay, so we are nonprofit. We cannot say anything partisan. I won't say anything partisan. It is so important that we are politically engaged. That is one of our 5 aspects of the ministry. If you don't already know, I would encourage you to think about what it means to care for creation and what the politicians that you want would be reflecting and saying about creation. I have the One Home, One Future ecumenical, they have a voting guide to ask you some guiding questions about those who you vote for and the questions you want to be asking about their policies. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Yeah. I don't think, I get the sense that I'm talking to a very politically engaged crowd, but of course, vote. That's a big part of it. We know that those who care for the environment are less, I have to look at the statistics exactly, but we're less represented in the voting pool than some other groups. Yeah. Anybody else questions or comments? Yeah.
So, according to your research and experience, are solar panels cost effective in this part of the country?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. What I would do is I would connect you with Interfaith Power and Light. They have some more specifics on solar. This is something that is a push and pull for me because personally I live in a house. I would love to see solar panels put on a house, but I also live in the shadow of a hill. So it doesn't make sense to do it everywhere. I couldn't answer specifically for your building. I know that there are many in Western Washington who do have solar panels, if it was something that the church was interested in engaging with. Yeah. Anything else? Any comments? Any thoughts? We have about 10 minutes until...
Those trees that we have all over the place.
Yeah.
In the congregation we have them, but they kind of would be poor for solar panels.
Yeah, they can be, yeah. Yeah, I won't give any specific recommendations. I have been in this and here into this room, so I don't know what the whole facilities look like, but I for sure pass on these services.
Creation Care Ministry action plan is really helpful. It's specific, what we can do.
Yeah.
Can I ask something? Can you explain greenhouse gases in a little bit? I sort of know what they are, but just what actually reduces them as applicable to my church?
Yeah, that's a great question. So not explaining the concept of how they work, but what reduces them? Yeah, there are many things that can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In terms of there are some ones that you wouldn't think about. I mean, I think a lot of our discussion is based around renewable energy. That, of course, is part of the mitigation effort of bringing us down to neutrality. But also things like regenerative agriculture, which can help sequester carbon into the soil, is a big one that we've been looking at lately. Are you familiar with Project Drawdown? So Project Drawdown is a research-based project that has looked at all the available ways that we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, right, mitigate them. And what we know is that there will not be one silver bullet that brings it down, that it will be a lot of different things working together. So one of the things that we don't think about is actually refrigerants, which I'm forgetting the chemical or the atomic name for it, but there is a refrigerant that is used that is not carbon, which is the one we hear a lot, but it's a different greenhouse gas that actually warms, I would say,
Freon.
yeah, 50 times more than carbon does.
It's in car air conditioners too.
Yeah, yeah. CFCs maybe? With the other term? That's what's ringing in my head. And so asking, like grocery stores are a big source of this because they're refrigerating things all the time. So I know right now there is a big campaign with Green America, which is asking grocery stores to think about how to over, because we have the technology. We have the technology to have much better refrigeration that doesn't emit these gases. But it's a matter of convincing people to make that transition. So I would recommend looking at Project Drawdown. There are many things, and there are limits to what a single congregation can do, which is why it's important to go outside of the walls and use the power. I mean, I think we know that the loudest Christians out there are the Christians who are maybe not being Christ-like. And the loudest Christians out there are not making creation a priority, at least in the United States. So it's really important that we use our influence as Christians, as Lutherans, to go outside of our own world and talk out there. Yeah, thank you for that. That was a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the website is drawdown.org.
Thank you.
I think embracing that idea of stewardship. We talked at the beginning about the have dominion and subdue. You know, I think I still am not as appreciative as I could be of how that's been embraced. You know, it's like manifest destiny. It's, you know, our calling to rip the earth open, to extract or to even to grow. And it's, you know, so really trying to bring ourselves as Christians to the idea of that we really are here to be stewards of the earth, all that that really means, or the carekeeping, whatever you had some words in there.
Yeah.
And again, to just show that in our lives to other people, to think twice about it, whether it's like, oh, you know, I was at an event that the food was served in a, I think a paper containers, but everybody was just throwing the food and the paper all into one thing. And all I had to do there was stand there, say dump it, and I'll take the paper, so we could get all this compostable thing together. And it was such a simple thing that obvious any one of you would have done it. But it was just like, you know, looking for those opportunities to say I can go one small step forward to try to solve this problem a little bit. But the showing it to others that you care is a huge part of, I think, sending the message.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've come different ways on this issue, and I think there's sort of different generational ideas about how we handle our personal responsibility in this. In that many young people are saying, I can't solve this on my own, which is true. I can't solve this on my own, and the responsibility is on those who started this problem. It's on the oil and gas companies, which is true. We look at 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming out of industry and government. So it can feel overwhelming, but there's that whole 30%, that is from individuals and households. So it's percentage-wise, it is still important. 30% is not nothing, it is a third. And also, it is a matter of discipleship, in the same way that we, do small things to model, like you were saying, model and show our dedication and show our obedience to the idea of our role as stewards and of servants of the earth. And it can be really powerful. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Going back to that hope statement, which is wonderful. There's a lot of science out there. There's a lot of people that want to do something.
Yeah.
And there's also like a legitimate diagnosis now of climate anxiety.
Yes.
So a lot of people are feeling it. I think it's important to get the message out. What you started with, don't despair, stay hopeful,
Yeah.
and try to take action, even small steps.
Yes. I heard a really good talk earlier this year through a program that the ELCA does, No Plastics for Lent, which is a Lenten practice of trying to have no plastics, just what it sounds like. And this year they did a video on just that, the climate anxiety and the despair, and how to stay hopeful. And what is our role as a church to care for those who are experiencing that anxiety? And it can be hard to do. It can be definitely hard to do. But when we think about, biblical texts and the relevance they have, they don't, of course, speak climate change or despair by name. But I think it's really helpful to go to the story of the crucifixion, and the disciples, they know about despair. Our scriptures tell us about despair. And there is a period where basically the world has ended for the disciples. And we think that our sense of apocalypse, our fear for the ending of the earth, is unique, but it's not. It's a unique expression of it, for sure. We have not experienced this as a humanity yet. But there are so many times where people have experienced the sense of, this is all going to end, there is nothing left. And yet, there is a renewal. There is a sense of, Martin Luther once said, or it's attributed to him at least, that if I knew the world was going to end tomorrow, then today I would plant an apple tree. Which is just, really lovely. So, yes, I think about that despair a lot. But captured by hope, we do something. We are moved to action, not despair. Sorry, that was a very
Wonderful.
final clause.
I actually don't think that I've ever really thought about the Bible story of the crucifixion, looking at it from the perspective of the disciples in that way, of such an immense despair, and how there again we trust God. The resurrection occurred, but that kind of thing. That was beautiful. So don't think you got too carried away there. We like the story of the crucifixion, right? Or sorry, of the resurrection, rightfully so. It is the fundamental piece that brings us here, and yet the resurrection is powerful because of the 3 days that we spent. I don't come from a liturgical tradition growing up, so when I found that the church has those 3 days and like a time in the year where we recognize that was mind-blowing to me, because there is grief. There is very real grief, climate anxiety and climate grief. I know people who are doing just grief circles. And it's a powerful thing to be able to surrender that to God. Yeah.
Just a plug for Ridwell. Carol signed up for that, and it's amazing how much plastic you use.
Even when you try not to bring the plastic in. So it's available in many neighborhoods now. It looks like a little white box that you get your milk in when you were a child, and they will take soft crushable plastics, they will take multi-layer plastics, light bulbs, batteries, clothing, and then they'll have certain times of the year where they'll take certain things. They'll even take your little bread tags. So it's a service you pay for, but it does help you feel a little bit better about, even just saying to your neighbors, bring all your batteries over, we'll take care of them through that.
All right, this down.
Yeah, Ridwell.
It's a local company, and I live in a community, retirement community, and we have that. And it's absolutely astounding. In fact, yesterday I was separating stuff. It's astounding how much you can accumulate in a community to recycle. And then they have special drives, special things, and they always have a connector to where they can recycle it.
Yeah, that if they're going to collect something once a year, they'll everything from costume jewelry to real jewelry, you know. And they have the people that can sort that, and some people can reassemble, but they don't collect stuff that they don't have a good source for turning it to good. And so that's another thing that's been very wonderful.
I know there are congregations too that will have gathering bins for people to bring things that you can't recycle in your normal recycling, textiles, batteries, things like that. As talking hands. Yeah.
So from a standpoint of health, I've been reading about how we have all these PFAs, this microplastics in our blood. It's inside of us. And why, you know, and all the things, so many things that we eat come in plastic. You know, plastic containers, like even our pill bottles, those are all plastic. And you imagine how could they replace them with glass or cardboard or whatever. But, and then I stopped to think about it, and I'm using plastic dishes half the time and drinking out of plastic cups because I go out on the back porch or something. And, you know, we have choices to make. We don't have to store our food in plastic in the refrigerator. We can use glass, or I've been starting to save the glass jam jars to use for some leftovers can go in there. So we have choices to make, and it affects our health.
Take the pill bottles. So if you're worried about your privacy, try to rip the label off. And honestly, if you want to hand Ed and I a bag of your, take your name off it. If you want to hand us a bag of pill bottles, get it into the
But it's only the clear pill bottles, not the white ones.
No, yeah, because some of those are recyclable. But the amber bottles that the pharmacy sends you home in, again, that's been a very difficult thing to get out into another stream, and that's one thing.
If you're into saving seeds, you can use those yourself.
That's right. Seed saver.
Also, your trash pickup people, they have a truck station off of Northrop, and you can take your styrofoam and used oil and things into there. And if you go to the transfer station, I'm not complaining about Ridwell.
No,
I know. But if you just have a few things and you want to do that, the recycling station will do it. Gabrielle, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for the conversation. We really appreciate it.